Welcome back from tea break. I'm expecting Dr. Mulgeta and Enoch to join me for the reporting case. Okay, to use our time, let me introduce the next presenter, Mr. Okochu Daniel. Here is his brief biography. Mr. Okochu has served as a country director, Ethiopia and former Rwanda. As country director, prior to his current role in Ethiopia, he served as GGGI country representative to Rwanda. In Rwanda, he played a pivotal role in the country's green growth transformation through development of green growth strategies and frameworks. As a program and strategic leadership, he has held important positions within GGGI, including regional portfolio coordination office for Africa and the Middle East as the GGI headquarters in Seoul. He also served as Rwanda program lead, where he oversaw strategic and programmatic design and implementation. As foundational involvement between 2010 and 2015, he was extensively involved in engaging with members and establishing GGI country office. He also served as a policy and knowledge management group. He served as the knowledge management and outreach office for the Ethiopian program. He has successfully mobilized finance and investment for various countries. Concerning publication and coordination, he has authored and contributed knowledge to numerous technical papers, policy documents, and reports on green growth. Notable works including co-authoring Rwanda's national roadmap for green secondary cities, development and coordinating the engagement and the development of Ethiopia's climate resilience green economy strategy. He was also involved in the GGI UNIDO study concerning green industrial development and employment. Education-wise, he holds a master's degree in international development and cooperation. He also holds an executive certificate in economic development from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. These are the very brief introduction of Mr. Okochu Daniela. May I invite him to the stage for brief presentation of his paper entitled Green Economies, Connectivity and Inclusive Regional Development. As usual, you also have 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, moderator, for the introduction. And a good task would be for you to connectivity and inclusive regional development, a pathway to regional peace and cooperation for sustainable development. So this paper will be focusing on the case of Ethiopia, Africa, but also looking at the global dynamics. And when we look at abstracts of the paper, it argues that green economies, regional connectivity, and inclusive development are not separate policy agendas, but mutually reinforcing pillars of peace and sustainable development. And in Africa, and particularly in Ethiopia, Horn of Africa, climate vulnerability and infrastructure gaps, fragmented markets, unemployment, food insecurity, geopolitical competition intersects in ways that can either deepen fragility or create new pathways for cooperation. Ethiopia's climate resilient green economy strategy provides an early example of a national development framework that takes economic transformation with climate resilience and low carbon growth at the continental level. The African Continental Free Trade Area, but also the African Union Agenda 2063 and the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa demonstrate that Africa's development prospects depend heavily on integrated transport, energy, digital, and water systems. Globally, rising geopolitical tensions are reshaping the ways that businesses are done across borders. For example, climate finance shortfalls, carbon border measures, and competition over critical minerals are reshaping how international development works. So this paper will conclude that green regional connectivity, if designed inclusively, financed fairly, and governed cooperatively, can reduce conflict, risk, expand and share prosperity, and position Africa from a climate-vulnerable continent to a strategic actor in global sustainable development. And I will look at some of the highlights, starting from the introduction to some aspect of how we can look at this topic in regards to green growth, connectivity, and international cooperation. The pursuit of sustainable development in Africa increasingly requires more than national growth strategies. It requires a regional political economy capable of linking climate resilience, clean energy, trade corridors, digital infrastructure, food systems, and social inclusion. Climate change, economic fragmentation, and geopolitical competition are producing a development context in which countries cannot achieve prosperity or stability in isolation. For example, for landlocked countries such as Ethiopia, the question is no longer whether green growth matters, but how green growth can be connected to regional markets, cross-border infrastructure, and cooperative governance. The central argument of this paper is that green economies and connectivity can become instruments of regional peace when they are embedded in inclusive regional development. Green economies create new opportunities for employment, investment, resource efficiency, and climate resilience. Whereas also connectivity enables these opportunities to move across borders through energy trade, transport corridors, digital platforms, regional value chains, and people-to-people exchange. Inclusive regional development ensures that the gains from this transformation reach peripheral regions, women, youth, small producers, pastoralist communities, and fragile borderlands, rather than being captured only by the capital cities, large firms, or politically connected actors. And this argument is particularly relevant to Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia is a large country with significant renewable energy potential, strategic location, a young population, and long-standing ambition to pursue climate-resilient development. Its climate-resilient green economy strategy, launched in 2011, set out a vision of achieving middle-income status through growth that is resilient to climate change and does not result in net greenhouse gas emission. The strategy identified green growth not as an environmental add-on, but as the development pathway integrated with agricultural transformation, forest protection, renewable energy, and industrial development. At the continental level, Africa's Agenda 2063 recognizing that connectivity and integration are essential for Africa to achieve its growth potential and participate effectively in the global economy. Yet, the promise of this agenda is not automatic. Green investments can reproduce inequality if they displace communities, exclude local enterprises, or fail to create decent jobs. Connectivity can generate tension if corridors are not securitized, ports become geopolitical flashpoints, or infrastructure benefits bypass border populations. Regional energy projects can foster cooperation, but they can also intensify disputes if water, land, and power sharing arrangements are not transparent and mutually beneficial. The challenge, therefore, is to design green economies and connectivity as peace-positive systems. The second area that the paper looks at is the conceptual framework linking green economies, connectivity, and peace. And as most of you may know, a green economy may be understood as an economic system that improves human well-being and social equity while reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcity. In the African development context, this definition must be expanded beyond emission reduction. It must include climate adaptation, resilient livelihood, food security, access to clean energy, sustainable urbanization, nature, positive infrastructure, and local economic inclusion. And this is exactly where our work as Global Green Growth Institute resonates across our member states, including Ethiopia. This is important because Africa contributes relatively little to historical global emissions, but faces disproportionate climate risk, including drought, floods, land degradation, water stress, and food insecurity. And when we look at connectivity, we are looking at the physical, economic, institutional, and digital systems that link people, markets, territories, and states. It includes roads, railway, ports, power grids, broadband network, water systems, logistic platforms, custom regimes, data systems, and trade rules. Connectivity is not simply infrastructure. It is the enabling architecture of interdependence. Poorly governed connectivity can produce extraction, exclusion, and dependence. Well-governed connectivity can create shared interests, reduce transaction costs, deepen economic complementarities, and increase the incentives for peaceful cooperation. Inclusive regional development refers to development that reduces spatial, social, and economic disparities within and across countries. It is especially important in Africa because many conflict risks are concentrated in peripheral regions, borderlands, and areas where state presence is weak, services are limited, and livelihood are climate sensitive. Inclusion in this context requires more than consultation. It demands equitable access to infrastructure, fair compensation and benefit sharing, local enterprise participation, gender-responsive programming, youth employment, social protection, conflict-sensitive planning, and accountable governance. And when we look at the relationship between these concepts, it could be summarized as follows. Green economies create sustainable productive opportunities. Connectivity links these opportunities across territories and markets. Inclusive development distributes the benefit, and fair distribution creates the social foundation for peace. The peace dividends emerges not from infrastructure alone, but from institutions that transform connectivity into cooperation. And this logic aligns with the growing climate security discourse. Climate change is increasingly understood as a risk multiplier. And what does this mean? It means that it interacts with poverty, weak governance, displacement, inequality, and resource competition. And when you look at the African Union's climate security agenda, it similarly emphasizes collective action, adaptive capacity, livelihood, and low emission sustainable growth as part of broader peace and security framework. Thus, green regional development is not only an environmental or economic strategy, it is also a preventive peace-building strategy. Another point that the paper looked at is looking at it from the Ethiopia's context, the ambition and regional significance of Ethiopia's green economy. Ethiopia has been one of Africa's early movers in articulating green growth as a national development model. Its climate resilient green economy strategy framed climate action as central to economic transformation, poverty reduction, and long-term resilience. The strategy's core proposition was that Ethiopia could pursue rapid growth while avoiding high-emission development pathways. And the review of Ethiopia's CRG implementation notes that Ethiopia's committed early to a transformative low-carbon development approach and targeted a 64% reduction from a business-as-usual emission trajectory by 2030. And the newer version of this strategy, which is termed the low-term emission development strategy, which looks beyond 2030 to 2050, has even raised more ambitions and cross-cutting approaches across sectors in the government work. The Ethiopian case is important for three reasons. The first one is that Ethiopia's development challenges are structurally linked to climate vulnerability. Agriculture, livestock, forest, water, and rural livelihoods remain highly exposed to drought, floods, and land degradation. And the CRG strategy and national adaptation plan recognizes that climate resilience is necessary for protecting growth and livelihood. Second, Ethiopia's energy mix is heavily renewable, especially hydropower, giving it the potential to become a regional clean energy hub. The Ethiopia Energy Outlook 2025 notes that hydropower contributes over 90% of the country's electricity supply, while major prospects such as the GERD and Kyosha are central to future generation capacity. Third, Ethiopia's geography makes connectivity a strategic necessity. As a landlocked country, Ethiopia's access to ports, logistics, corridors, regional power trade, and cross-border markets is fundamental to its national development. Ethiopia's green economy should therefore be understood not only as a domestic policy framework, but as a regional development proposition. Renewable energy potential can support regional electricity trade through the Eastern Africa Power Pool, which was established to coordinate cross-border power trade and grid interconnection among Eastern African countries. Its transport corridors can link inland production systems to ports and regional markets. Its agricultural and agro-industrial potential can contribute to regional food security. Its experience with climate policy, carbon markets, landscape restoration, and adaptation planning can support broader African learning. However, Ethiopia's position also illustrates the risk of regional interdependence without adequate trust. Large-scale infrastructure such as dams, corridors, and ports can become source of diplomatic tension if they are framed through zero-sum sovereignty narratives. The GERD has presented by Ethiopia as a development and electrification project, while the neighboring countries have raised concerns about water security and the need for binding operating arrangements. Recent completion of the dam shows that its transformative energy potential and its continuing diplomatic sensitivity exist. And what is the policy lesson here is that it's not the large infrastructure should be avoided. Rather, it is the green infrastructure must be embedded in cooperative governance, data sharing, benefit sharing, joint planning, environmental safeguard, dispute resolution mechanism, and regional institutions capable of mediating interests before they harden into conflict. And the fourth area that the paper looked at is about connectivity as an economic infrastructure and peace infrastructure. And connectivity here, as I described before, is looking at it from lower transport costs, faster trade, larger markets, and improved competitions. These are important, but incomplete. In fragile and climate vulnerable regions, connectivity also functions as peace infrastructure. Roads, railways, power grids, and digital systems can link marginalized regions to services, create incentives for cross-border cooperation, and make economic interdependence more valuable than confrontation. There are so many examples in the paper, including, for example, the Ethio-Djibouti corridor, as well as the other corridors within the sub-region. And when we look at the fifth aspect of the paper, it talks about the Africa continental agenda, from fragmented markets to green regional value chains. African continental development frameworks already provides the basis for linking green economies and connectivity, just like the Agenda 2063 emphasizes, but also the African Continental Free Trade Area provides a legal and institutional platform for expanding intra-African trade. The agenda here within the continent is urgent because Africa continues to face a severe energy access gap. Trade is fragmented, but also coordination amongst the different aspects of the sub-Saharan region needs to be strengthened. And the sixth one, going towards the last, is looking at all this from a global dynamics. How does cooperation, competition, and the new green political economy stands? Africa's green regional development agenda is unfolding within a volatile global context. And we can see this with different studies that have showed that polarization, inequality, and mismanaged interdependence, while calling for renewed cooperation in a world of shared risk. Today, we see what is happening across the globe, and Africa is not removed from the challenges. But there are three global dynamics that I will mention briefly. First is that climate finance remains inadequate and unevenly distributed. Second, trade and industrial policy are being reshaped by carbon regulation and strategic competition. And the third one is that global competition over corridors, ports, energy systems, and digital infrastructure is intensifying. And the Horn of Africa and Red Sea region are strategically significant to global trade and security. And the final part of the paper looks at the green economies as pathway to regional peace. Green economies can contribute to peace through at least 5 pathways. First will be they can reduce resource scarcity by improving water management, land restoration, renewable energy access, and climate-resilient agriculture. Second, they can create shared economic interest across borders. Third, they can generate employment and reduce exclusion. Youth unemployment and livelihood insecurity are not the sole causes of conflict, but they can increase vulnerability to mobilization, migration distress, and social unrest. Fourth, green economies can strengthen state legitimacy by improving service delivery, for example, electricity, water, mobility, food system, etc. And the fifth one, green cooperation can create diplomatic platform where there are shared ideas, cooperation, and collaboration. However, this peace dividends depends on governance. Green projects can also generate conflicts if they involve, land dispossession or elite capture, like we see in many countries. Finally, what should we be doing in order to ensure that, as the topic of the paper frames green growth connectivity as part of opportunities for peace dividends, will be for us to first reframe green growth as regional public goods provision rather than it being just a state level intervention. Build green corridors, not only trade corridors. So today we talk about integration in regards to trade, but we don't link it to sustainability or green. Third, strengthen regional power trade. Fourth, develop regional green value chains under the African Continental Free Trade Area. And fifth, embed conflict sensitivity in climate and infrastructure finance. And sixth, localize green jobs and skills. Seventh, reform climate finance architecture. In conclusion, green economics Connectivity and inclusive regional development offer a powerful pathway for regional peace and cooperation in Ethiopia, Africa, and the wider global system. Ethiopia's experience demonstrates both the promise and complexity of this agenda. Its climate-resilient green economy vision, renewable energy potential, strategic location, and role in regional power and logistics system position it as a significant actor in Africa's green transformation. Yet, Ethiopia's experience also shows that infrastructure and natural resources can become politically sensitive when cooperative governance is weak or when regional trust is insufficient. This approach is the same for Africa as the broader challenge to move from fragmented national green projects to integrated regional green development, as seen in Agenda 2063. In a polarized global order, Africa's green growth transition is not simply an environmental necessity. It is a strategic development project. If designed well, it can help transform climate vulnerability into resilient infrastructure gaps, into cooperation, youth unemployment into green productivity, and geopolitical exposure into regional agency. The central policy task is therefore to ensure that green economies are connected. Connectivity is inclusive, and inclusive development becomes the foundation for durable peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okecho Daniel, for very enlightening presentation on the green economic connectivity and major issues related to for regional development. So in his presentation, he gave emphasis to the issue of climate vulnerability in East Africa, and hence the need for climate resilient action. So gave emphasis to the significance of regional connectivity and also international linkage. But he also addressed the limitation of this geopolitical competition in which it works against this regional cooperation. In one of his presentations also he addressed Ethiopia's potential in generation of renewable energy and the country's path toward this industrialization. As a form of remark also, he gave emphasis on the care to be taken while implementing a green economy, especially considering the issue of connectivity, peace, and also equity for the successful implementation of the green economic agenda. Much emphasis was also given to the inclusiveness of regional connectivity in addressing, because this connectivity should address also the peripheries and also equal access to infrastructure by all actors. The other point in given emphasis in his presentation is the green economy and the strategies to be followed for its successful implementation, particularly on addressing climate resilience. He gave also due emphasis to the Ethiopian experience on green economy, especially on the low emission and also reliance on renewable energy, especially the hydropower utilization of the country, especially the GERD, and access to sea. Now, when the country is also on the right track in using the green economy, he also gave emphasis on the significance of access to sea as a fundamental to sustain such green economy.